Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got the hazardous weather graphic here, and there's a high wind warning out for St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait coast, along with high surf advisories, and looking for winds to increase with the storm approaching from the southwest. Winds will increase with gusts of 60 miles an hour or gusts above 60 miles an hour here for St. Lawrence Island, and then they'll be quickly moving up to the coastline there. And there are wind advisories out here for the Kobuk Valley, Ambler, eastward there into the Selawik and Kotzebue, on up to Kivalina, and I believe to Point Hope in that zone. And those are for winds will increase from the same storm, gusts 40 to 50 miles an hour. Later tonight or late tonight and through Sunday into Sunday evening. On the satellite imagery, there's the storm stands out very vividly here. The main center hanging back over the southwest Bering Sea, front pushing northeastward, and then a lot of moisture out here, cloudiness from actually Amchitka Island there all the way up, and this high level clouds spreading in toward Kodiak Island and across the southwest interior. Precipitation producing clouds on the last picture here had just made it to Nunivak Island, and at mid-afternoon there was some light snow beginning to show up along the Yukon Delta coast. Rain in the warmer conditions, warmer air just to the south. Rain for the Pribilofs, gusty winds, 30 to 50 miles an hour, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula today, with again the moisture all the way out to Adakanatka, break behind the main front, and then more showers, rain and snow showers. Colder air there, southwest winds pretty gusty out there towards Shimei and Attu. Meanwhile, in the east, we've got kind of a weak disturbance sliding down from the Arctic here. Bulk of the moisture over in northwest Canada, some of that extending westward into the eastern interior. You can see from, roughly the Eagle area back in toward Fairbanks, the clouds anyway. Scattered snow showers in this cloud mass, especially on the upslope areas of the eastern Alaska range, possibly even down south of the mountains there could be some scattered snow showers, especially over the Wrangell Mountains. And then you come westward and it clears out. Clouds though forming around Denali Park this afternoon, but sun shines in Sitna Valley, Matanuska Valley, Palmer, right into Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and as you can see, much of the northwest as well, right on up into the Noatak Valley areas. Also the Arctic coast up there, or North Slope, seeing clear skies today, but showing up white because the temperatures were below zero, especially this morning up in that area, kind of a cold air mass lingering up there. And then some clouds and rain here over the southern southeast coast. Conditions a little more showery up to the north, and with the more showery conditions, there was also some sunbreaks today. On the chart, you can see the area of the light snow here over the southeast interior, and then extending back to the north there and tapering off, but clouds all the way back up to the Brooks Range, but high pressure and cold air. They're locked in, Arctic high pressure over the North Slope and Arctic coastal areas, with sunshine all the way down to the Gulf of Alaska, as I mentioned, Kodiak Island, and then the rain and snow showers and mostly rain showers over the southern panhandle today. And then the storm here, pretty good front pushing northeastward. Winds already on the increase again. That'll be responsible for the high wind warnings tonight into Sunday for St. Lawrence Island. And again, the winds on the increase here all day today along the southwest coast, especially Nunivak Island. Behind the warm front, rain all the way down to the eastern Aleutians, spreading eastward to the Alaska Peninsula with those gusty winds there. Again, this possibly as high as 50 miles an hour in gusts. And a little bit of a break behind the front there, but clouds extending all the way out with some moisture. And then the rain and snow showers there is a trough. Leading edge of the colder air swinging around the low center, pushes into the far western Aleutians. And for tonight, the front will push up to about this position here, so definitely we'll see rain and snow mix pushing into the southwest coast. Warm front, again, more moisture, rain, pretty good bet here for the Alaska Peninsula. And again, the high wind warnings for St. Lawrence Island there with mixed rain and snow. Could start out as snow and then it'll change over to mixed rain and snow as the warmer air rides in on those gusty winds. Tightening gradient here over the northwest. Again, the high wind advisories in that area as the Arctic high slides southeastward into the, let's see, around the Mackenzie River Delta area. And You're still going to keep some snow showers with this east-northeast kind of upslope flow going. Chance of be mostly cloudy. It'll be cloudy here toward the Wrangell Mountains from about the central Copper River Basin eastward to the border, with a risk of some snow showers. Whatever falls will be quite light there for the eastern Alaska range, right on down into the possibly the northern Panhandle. Should stay mostly north of the border there. The flying conditions will be lower on the north side of the passes, or the northern entrances to both the Chilkoot and White passes, and showers will land, rain will land here over the southern Panhandle with looks like staying mostly cloudy though through the night. But for tomorrow, we'll see the skies become partly cloudy or partly sunny, however you want to look at it, down there across the southeast coast. Low here in the Gulf, really not producing any weather at all other than a few clouds. Again, lingering snow showers will be on the north side of the border there, mostly in Canada on the upslope areas of the mountains, and dry to the south. Maybe a risk of a snow shower for Yakutat, but that's just a slight chance at this point. Another sunny day, Prince William Sound and the Kenai Peninsula. Areas all through the central and eastern interior locations. Very windy conditions again. I believe the high wind warning out through tomorrow here for St. Lawrence Island as one low center pulls up to the Russian Far East there. That'll help push the front up into that area. Taking a little longer here along the southwest coast. Actually beginning to weaken. You can see the wind field not quite as impressive as it was today. And rain, though, with warmer temperatures, spreads right in even over the Kuskokwim Delta, maybe into the southern Kuskokwim Valley, with rain increasing throughout the day here for Kodiak Island, especially on the western side there, and possibly some of that could slip up into southern Cook Inlet late in the day. Otherwise, should be a mostly sunny day once again here for south central Alaska. Lots of rain and snow showers out here over the Aleutians, with another increase in the winds as a strong trough rotates on the south side of that 984 low center that's well west of the Pribilof Islands. And then for Monday, remnants of this front pushes inland there with rain and snow there, back down toward the Kodiak Island area where new low forms. So wet conditions again will continue through Monday there for Kodiak, rain and fog, but not too bad on the winds. Next system pulling into the southwest Bering Sea for gale force winds and rain here, pushing rapidly eastward, possibly reaching Nikolsky late in the afternoon on Monday. Pribilof will be in a little bit of a break, as well as Bristol Bay and the southwest coast for much lighter winds and dry conditions. And the southeast coast, variably cloudy, partly to mostly, and again, just a slight risk of a snow shower up in the north areas. For the lows for tonight, down across the southeast coast, mostly in the lower to mid-30s, a little milder out toward the coastline there. Right around freezing for the North Gulf Coast, mid-20s, lower 30s, south central Alaska. And right around 20 degrees, give or take, for the Copper River Basin, depending on your cloud cover. North of the mountains, though, single numbers to maybe below zero here. Again, kind of a cold air mass flowing southward out of the Arctic, so that's going to keep the temperatures tonight anywhere from 5 to possibly 15 below zero, especially north of the Brooks Range there, and back to the west. And then, as you can see, markedly milder, above freezing, mid-30s the lows here for the Kuskokwim Delta areas. Even the Yukon Delta, St. Mary's 34 the forecast low, while St. Lawrence Island looking at about barely falling under 30 degrees, 34 for the Pribilofs, mid-30s for the Aleutians to near 40 for the Alaska Peninsula, but chillier with that colder air moving into the Shimmy area. Ice tomorrow, lower 40s for the Aleutians, mid-40s for the Alaska Peninsula, lower 50s in some locations for the Bristol Bay zone, and upper 40s to lower 50s, the Sitna Valley, south central Alaska regions, and then 20s for the Brooks Range, and teens, lower teens along the Arctic coast, eastern interior into the 30s, 40s, lower 40s for the Tanana Valley, and not too bad here, lower to mid 50s for the Panhandle. Low temperatures for Monday morning shaping up like this, lower to mid 30s for the southeast coast, a little below zero in areas here over the eastern interior up to the Arctic coast, a little above zero for the west side, and then mid 30s again over the southwest, as well as the Alaska Peninsula. 40 for Kodiak, upper 20s, lower 30s again for south central Alaska, mid 30s out over the Aleutians, and the highs for Monday afternoon, maybe possibly into the mid 50s for the Susitna Valley on down to about Big Lake, otherwise near 50 for northern Cook Inlet, lower 40s out to the southwest in the deltas, and upper 40s now, could push 50 degrees there in the greater Fairbanks area, with 30s for the Brooks Range, staying in the teens there, lower to mid for the Arctic coast. And the Panhandle looking not too bad there with lower to mid 50s there with the warmest locations. Mostly it looks like over the northern areas, with near 50-degree readings along the North Gulf Coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving along to some flying weather, we've got areas IFR up here from the Brooks Range on out toward mostly the eastern Beaufort Sea coast there, and really isolated here through the interior, a little bit more widespread in the eastern Gulf of Alaska. Northern Panhandle, see the lowest conditions early on, VFR to the south, and of course mostly IFR out here to the west into the Yukon Delta coast, northward across St. Lawrence Island, and then on down south the Alaska Peninsula, Fox Islands. And for the afternoon, we've got some VFR breaks showing up out here over the central Aleutians and from Unalaska, False Pass, up across probably St. George Island, possibly St. Paul Lake, and then IFR up to the north there to the Bering Strait, down along the coast here to Bristol Bay, and back up to Kodiak Island. Good VFR tomorrow afternoon, North Gulf Coast areas, Prince William Sound, over to the Kuskokwim Valley, all the way up to the Arctic coast there, and Panhandle now, losing the lower stuff you'll see in the morning. That'll be mostly on the northern part of the range there, north of the border due to the northerly flow. Chance of marginal VFR on the south coast. Then for Monday morning, IFR, central eastern Arctic coast, good VFR, central eastern interior. And you'll see IFR in the increase here trying to push northward, or will, not trying, looks like it does a pretty good job there up the eastern slopes of the western Alaska range. So Lake Clark and Merrill becoming IFR on those eastern approaches. Lots of IFR out here over the southwest from Bristol Bay right up across the western Seward Peninsula into the Chukchi Sea. Marginal VFR, a few breaks out there over the Aleutians, and IFR here sliding on into the southern Panhandle. Then for the afternoon, that kind of stays put down in that area. Otherwise, VFR up to the north, northwest, and back to the west into Prince William Sound. Kenai Peninsula, right on the edge there of things. Still some IFR toward the western Alaska range, staying VFR up here to the east and northwest, with marginal VFR there right along the northwest coast, right into the Kuskokwim Valley, IFR, northern Bering Sea, and more IFR slipping on in with that next system coming in across the western Bering. And for passes, both Anatuvik and Adigan look VFR tomorrow, will be VFR tomorrow, as well as Lake Clark and Merrill. Good VFR for another day, one more day, rainy VFR. Windy, same forecast. Isabel, VFR. Mentasta, VFR. Tonita, VFR. And Portage, VFR. Sounds like I'm in a chant. And for Chilkoot and White, VFR, but again on those northern approaches, disturbance is dropping southward. Could see that'll be the area with the lower flying conditions there. Could be marginal VFR, really just slight risk. It could be IFR at times, mainly marginal. And then for the freezing levels, 8,000 feet here, or actually 6,000, 8,000 in the Alaska Peninsula, 6,000 all the way up the Yukon Delta coast, 2,000 feet into Norton Sound, that push of warmer air. At the surface here for the remainder of the interior, that cuts across southeast Alaska there at 2,000 feet. Moving on to icing, with the system pushing eastward, look for some areas of icing here, probably little if any will be of the moderate variety, above about 4,000 feet through this zone, pushing up to the northern Bering Sea, and then just scattered areas there of moisture and possible mixed icing here back to the west and southwest. And for the upper level wind flow chart, south-southeasterly flow there, that's going to tend to stall and weaken that front out along the coast. Otherwise, high pressure aloft over the northern interior areas with northerly flow here along the eastern border and roughly about 50 to 60 knots. And ridging popping up out over the western Aleutians there, and of course a jet well to the south of the Panhandle. And for the 9,000 foot winds, we can see pretty good low here just south of the Russian coast, strong southwest flow, 30 to 60 knots, right into the southwest coast, northward there, 50 knots across St. Lawrence Island, and pretty windy there for the Seward Peninsula and the northwest coast, with lighter winds under the ridge axis that'll be gradually shifting eastward throughout the day to this position, maybe not until tomorrow evening. It'll be this far to the east, may have it a tad far to the east there, and that'll keep the Panhandle there under mostly dry northerly offshore flow. And then for 3,000 feet, weaker flow here, 5 to 15 for the southeast coast, that's about it, and about 15 knots up the east side of the interior. Increasing here as you move west, again, the strongest winds, south 35 to 50 knots here in the west, and then southwesterlies over the Bering Sea running 30 to 45 knots there a tad lighter out over the Aleutians. Turbulence-wise, moderate chop, pretty widespread along the western areas of the state. And after the marine forecast, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
And now, your 2018 Alaska River Watch update.
Hi, my name is Selena Van Breukelen. I'm a hydrologist at the National Weather Service. I'm on the Alaska Weather Show today talking about our breakup forecast for 2018. Breakup is the process of when we move from the snow-covered and ice-filled winter river conditions to when that snow and that ice melts and we move into a summer ice-free condition. It represents a time where many rivers are vulnerable towards flooding, and this is our 2018 forecast. So the first thing we're going to look at when we examine flooding potential is the snowpack. This is a snowpack map of Alaska. It was taken on April 1st. What we can see here is any of the locations which are in the blue or the dark blue are going to be above normal snowpack. So we have quite a bit of snow in the northwestern side of the state. We have the Kobuk, the Koyukuk, the Seward Peninsula, down through the middle of Yukon, into the Tanana and the eastern Alaska Range, and also the Copper River Basin. That northwest through southeast section of the state has well above average snowpack. Also along the Canadian border, we have normal snowpack. That's going to be the 40-mile country close to Eagle, also the eastern side of the Wrangels. We have below normal snowpack on the Kenai Peninsula as well as the western Susitna down through southeast Alaska. The next thing we look at when we evaluate breakup flooding potential is the amount of ice that's in the channel, or the April ice thicknesses. What we can see here is we have normal to below normal ice thickness. That's because we've had relatively mild temperatures throughout the winter, as well as a little bit of snowpack in order to insulate the ice cover. So looking, we've got 80% of normal in the YK Delta, up through 80% of normal on the North Slope, 50% of normal through the Brooks Range, 80 to 100% of normal in the Fairbanks area, 100% of normal in Eagle, as well as 100% of normal in the south central Alaska, the Anchorage Kenai area, and 110% of normal in the Wrangels. So normal to below normal ice thickness throughout the state. Looking into the forecast, what we're predicting as far as temperatures for warm-up, trying to kick off the breakup process. For the middle of April, we have a greater than normal chance of warmer temperatures, especially in the western side of the state. Most decidedly, the YK Delta has the greatest chance of above normal temperatures, and there is some indication of above normal chances of warmer temperatures as far north as Barrow. There's some tilt towards colder temperatures for points north and east of Fairbanks, so for the Porcupine area, for the eastern Brooks Range. We're not predicting any significant precipitation for the middle of April. That doesn't mean there's not going to be any snow or rain, but it's probably not enough to be appreciable to make any changes to the snowpack. Then looking a little bit further down through the last part of April into early May, there's quite a tilt for warmer than average temperatures across the state. And then once again, still staying consistent with that below normal chances of precipitation. For our flood outlook potential, we're expecting a higher chance of snowmelt flooding for the locations which have the highest snowpack. So that was the northwestern side of the state down through the southeast. So that's going to be your Koyukuk, Seward Peninsula, Middle Yukon, Eastern Alaska Range, Copper River basins. One thing of note is the Chena Basin has above normal snowpack. It's near record levels, so that increases the potential that the Moose Creek Flood Control Project would operate. That doesn't mean that Fairbanks will be flooded. It means that the operation of the dam sometimes causes groundwater issues in the North Pole area. And putting this all together, we have normal to well above normal snowpack across most of the state, with the exception of south central and southeast. We have normal to below normal ice thickness, just because the winter hasn't been bitterly cold and there's been some snow to insulate the ice. We have some bias towards warmer temperatures in late April and early May. And the outlook is the likelihood of flooding due to ice jams is average, and the amount of snowpack increases the likelihood of snowmelt flooding, especially in the middle Yukon, the Tanana, and the Koyukuk. So it is still early. These are just the initial predictions. As breakup progresses, we'll be posting updates on the Alaska Weather Show, as well as our website that will be as soon as we have the information. So to look at our breakup map, you can see that on the web at www.weather.gov/APRFC. So this is Selena Van Breukelen. I'm with the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center, and this is your breakup forecast. Thank you.
Riverwatch is a safety and preparedness program organized by the National Weather Service's Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center and the State of Alaska's Emergency Operations Center. For the latest updates on Riverwatch, head to weather.gov/APRFC. And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis looks something like this, or it doesn't look something like this, it looks exactly like this. You can see not a lot changed from yesterday, and the forecast is for a little melting from yesterday, a little melting back, and with the southerly winds, forecast is for what could be a pretty significant decrease in the sea ice out here, especially over the Bering Sea, since it's not all that thick. That'll be over the next 4 or 5 days. Well, given that, moving on to the coastal water forecast, here you can see kind of variable here for the north coast of the Panhandle, 10 knots, 5 to 6 foot seas. And then you pick up a northwest breeze here at about 15, which turns northerly and picks up to 20 knots down on the south coast there along the shores of Prince of Wales Island. Clarence Strait, northwest 15, 10 knots for Stevens Passage. Lynn Canal, northern, north at 15, excuse me, seas 3 feet. And moving on to Monday, got small craft advisories now for northern Lynn Canal, 25 knot winds and seas at about 5 feet with 15 knot winds for Stevens Passage, light northwesterlies Clarence Strait with 2 foot seas. And for the south coast here, northwest 15 to 20, and then easterly at 15, turn southeast at 15, a little farther to the north. And for Prince William Sound, we've got east winds at 10 knots with 2 foot seas, northeast 10, slight seas northern Cook Inlet, but south of the Forelands, those increase to 20 knots and then turn easterly into Kachemak Bay, 4 foot seas. Barren Islands, not bad, southeast 15, 3 foot seas. Light winds here for the North Gulf Coast out of the east and northeast with seas at about 4. And then for Monday, we've got northerlies now here for Prince William Sound, 10 knots, seas 2 feet. Easterlies at 15 with 3 foot seas there for the North Gulf Coast, turning northeast at 15 knots, 4 foot seas, like looking in a mirror, I guess. Easterlies at 25 knots here for the Barren Islands, so small craft advisories there, as well as Kachemak Bay, and those seas in Kachemak Bay up to 8 feet with a little less wind, southern Cook Inlet for the day on Monday, 15 knots out of the northeast 15, northern Cook Inlet with 3 foot seas. And for Bristol Bay, southeast 25 knots in the forecast for tomorrow, small craft advisories there, and also pretty brisk southerlies here across the peninsula, 30 knots with seas up to 14 feet in the Pacific side, 25 knot small craft advisory winds on up towards Sitkinak. Kodiak Island, not too bad, south 15 for Shelikof Strait, southwest 15 there on the east side of the island. And the outlook for Monday, we've got west-southwesterlies at about 20 for the peninsula, 9 foot seas there on the Bering Sea side of the things and 12 feet in the Pacific side. Lighter westerlies for Bristol Bay with subsiding seas, and from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, northwest 25, seas 10 feet, northeast at 20 for Shelikof Strait, and east at 20 there for the east side of Kodiak Island with seas at 8 feet, so I'll make it a small craft advisory. And for the Fox Islands, southwest winds 25 to mostly 30 knots with seas approaching 20 feet on the Pacific side of the islands. And the Central Aleutians, southwest 30 knots with 12 to 16 foot seas out that way. Gales increase as you head west there with 40 knots towards Chimianatu with seas up around 20 feet. And then for Monday, even stronger winds here. That next storm rolling in south to southwest, 45 knots out here, 20 to 25 foot seas, 45 knot winds into the Central Aleutians there ahead of that front with seas over 20 feet south of the islands. And winds will eventually pick up. It looks like small craft advisories through the day there for the Fox Islands, especially Unalaska Island, 25 to 30 knots back to the west, 40 knot winds come rolling in. And the southwest coast, gales tomorrow with that front southeast, 35 to 40 knots, gales also for St. Lawrence Island. High wind warning out for that island as well, for gusts 60 miles an hour, and southeast 40, pretty good gale for St. Matthew Island. And the Pribilof, southwest at 35 with 16-foot seas. And for Norton Sound on Monday, looks like southeast 15, but 30 knots, down under gale force there for the St. Lawrence Island area. Much lighter winds now, 20 knots here for the southwest coast. Small craft advisories for the Pribilofs and St. Matthew Island, south-southwest 25 to 30. Up along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, not a bad day tomorrow. Easterly breeze at 15 there, picking up to 20 knots though in the central coast as well as the west side. And then we got brisk wind advisories from Cape Beaufort all the way down to the Bering Strait for east winds at 30 knots. And the outlook for Monday, brisk wind advisories continue, but from the Bering Strait up to Cape Thompson. Cape Thompson on up to the central coast, we got 20 knot winds in the forecast, and then holding at about 15 for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And looking at tonight again, we've got, we move to this side, we got high wind warning out for the St. Lawrence Island area and the Bering Strait coast for the winds to pick up with gusts above 60 miles an hour late tonight and in through Sunday. High wind advisories for the Kobuk Valley on out to Selawik and Kotzebue up to Kivalina. 40 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts coming in later tonight and through Sunday. Another dry day or dry night here with mostly clear skies, but light snow showers drift over the southeast Copper River Basin. Should stay north of the Panhandle where it dries out elsewhere, and that'll continue into tomorrow as well. Look for some partly sunny skies, mostly cloudy other areas there. This front pushing into the southwest coast with rain and snow mixed. And then for Monday, that dissipates over the interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.